Hello, everyone. Um, so today we are going to talk about Parashat Matot, and I'd like to clarify that I don't know how this recording will come out. It might have some background noise. It's really, really hot in Israel right now, and so the air conditioning is on, and our air conditioning, though better than the classic window units you have in America, still makes a little bit of noise. So I apologize in advance if the quality of this recording is slightly less good than what you're used to. Anyway, Parashat Matot. So Parashat Matot, we have the conclusion, amongst other things, the conclusion of the story with Midian. Yeah, Midian, in the end of Parashat Balak, came and used their women. We talked about this last week to seduce the people of Israel and to bring them to worship false idols. And in this parasha, God tells Moshe, Nekom Nikmat Yisrael, Nekom Nikmat Yisrael Midian. You can, avenge the honor of Israel. It's a very interesting sentence in itself, that God is sort of saying, this is a war for Israel, it's not about me. And then Moshe says, no, it's about you. Okay, like he attributes the war to God. Interesting topic in and of its own. And ve'achar ta'aseh el amecha. And once you do this, you'll die. Meaning, God is saying to Hashem, God is saying to Moshe, this is your final major act. That's it. You do this, and you're done. Basically, after this, we have Sefer Dvarim, where Moshe summarizes everything that goes on, and then he dies. And there are many midrashim that talk about this fact, and specifically focus on how great of a person Moshe is, that he's told the last thing you do is going to be to fight this war, and instead of delaying and saying, well, okay, then I'll have this war in like 50 years and I'll live forever, right, or for another 50 years, instead he goes ahead and immediately takes on this mission. Hashem said do this, so he does it, and he doesn't care for the fact that his fate is basically will be death at the end, when this whole thing is over. And in the context of praising Moshe, Chazal talk about Yoshua, Moshe's apprentice, who becomes the next leader of Israel. And all the book of Joshua, the book of Yoshua, is about what he does and how he leads the people of Israel into Israel and conquers the land. This is also a criticism of him. So in what way? Amru zichronam livracha. This is in the Midrash, of course. They said, the rabbi said, "K'tiv b'Yoshua, ka'asher hayiti im Moshe, ehyeh imach." As I was with Moshe, I was with you. V'yatz, I will be with you. So this is part of God's promise to Yoshua. When Yoshua gets appointed at the beginning of the book of Yoshua, there's about sort of 10 or a dozen verses that are all about God telling Yoshua, don't worry, be strong, be brave, I am with you, just like I was with Moshe. And Moshe's name is mentioned several times, saying, whatever the relationship was with Moshe, it's going to be the relationship with you. Okay? So it says, just like I was with you, I will be, just like I was with Moshe, I'll be with you. So because of that, Yoshua should have lived as long as Moshe did, which was 120 years. What we know, based on the end of the book of Yoshua, that Yoshua only lived 110 years. So why did he lose 10 years? שבשעה שאמר לו הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה נקום נקמת בני ישראל אחר תאסף אל עמך, אף על פי שנתבשר בשורת מוות, לא אמר מחר אני מת, מה יועיל לי שאנקום במדיין? So when God told Moshe, Nekom, Nikmat, Bnei Israel, etc., okay, when he said, this verse, which by the way I forgot to mention is in chapter 31, verse 2, okay, that, first take care of the Midianites, then I will, and then you will die. Even though he was told he would die, it didn't stop him from doing it immediately. As it says, Vayishlach ota Moshe. Aval Yoshua lo asa ken. Yoshua didn't do this. כשבא להילחם עם 31 מלכים, אמר, אם אני גם מיד, אני מת. כשם שראה למשה רבנו. When Yoshua, according to the Midrash, came to the land of Israel, and he was about to start conquering the land, he said to himself, well, maybe the same thing will happen to me like happened to Moshe. When Moshe finished, doing his last, war with the Midianites, he died. So I don't want to die, so I'm going to delay. Instead of immediately conquering the entire land, I'll take my time. Okay, מיד התחיל מאחר ומעכב מלחמתם, שנאמר ימים רבים עשה יהושע את כל המלכים האלה מלחמה. So, he took his time. Yeshua, instead of going and rushing ahead and conquering it all, took many, many years to conquer the land. אמר לו הקדוש ברוך הוא, וכך עשית, if that's what you do, הרי אני מקצר שנותיך 10 שנים. Okay, I will, therefore, you thought you're going to live longer this way, I'm going to make you live shorter. אמר שלמה, רבות מחשבות, or אמר דוד, רבות מחשבות בלביש, ועצת השם היא תקום. A person has many, many thoughts, but in the end, what God wants is what happens. So, whereas perhaps we would have interpreted the long time it took to conquer the land of Israel as sort of the natural way that one would conquer a land, and one could definitely attribute this to the fact that moving into Israel meant also leaving this existence that was full of miracles that they had in the desert. This Midrash sees that simply as a result of Yeshua procrastinating and taking his time and not pushing it forward because he doesn't want to die. Okay, Yeshua starts off a young guy. When he's there, I'm not sure what young meant over here, but I don't remember if the verse tells us. But he doesn't want to die, so he goes ahead and he takes his time conquering the land. This is a very interesting midrash because we have to understand the flow of things. First of all, it seems that Yeshua had it completely wrong. Yeshua thought that that he would be able to live longer if he took his time, because he's like Moshe, right? He figured if Moshe died after he finished that war, then I'm also going to die after I finish a war. First of all, I'm not sure what that means. I mean, Moshe did a few wars with Amalek, with other ones. Why would he connect winning a war to dying, of all things? And second of all, is that he was wrong, right? God is saying, no, actually you would have lived much longer if you would have been alive, if you would have done what I told you. Because you didn't, you're going to live shorter, right? So it seems that he was wrong about this whole thing. Then we also get to this whole idea that Yeshua sees another interesting thing which we need to understand is that Yeshua really thinks that his fate is somehow a mirror of of Moshe's fate, right? Now, one could say that he's just learning from the one case that he could see, but I believe that things are much tighter, and that in fact, Yeshua realized, and correctly realized, that there was a special link between him and Moshe, and that as a result of that link, their fates should also be similar. And I'll explain what I mean. First of all, as I said, if you look at the verses of Yeshua, you'll see, let me just bring a Bible over here, you'll see that there are many places where Yeshua is told that his fate or his treatment by God will be just like Moshe. The book of Joshua starts off, Vayhi acharei mot eved Hashem, vayhi mot Moshe eved Hashem. Okay, right after Moshe dies, Vayomer Hashem el Yoshua binun misharet Moshe le'emor. God tells Yeshua, the servant of Moshe, Moshe's apprentice, Moshe avdi met, Moshe has died. Now come and lead the people of Israel. Every place you walk will be yours. Ka'asher dibarti Moshe, as I told Moshe. Lo yitatzev ish lefanecha, kol yemei chayecha ka'asher hayiti im Moshe di'imach. Okay, like Moshe, again and again and again. You are continuing Moshe's journey. I'm going to be with him just like you. There's continuity in my relationship with you and with the people of Israel. Moshe is very strongly featured. But beyond that, Moshe and Yeshua are one of only two couples that I know of that I can think off the top of my head in the Bible of a master and an apprentice, in the real sense, in the sense of a person who really takes over the responsibility of his master. That's not sort of a king. Okay, the only other couple that we have of this, and I mentioned this also a few weeks ago, is Eliyahu and Elisha, the two prophets that appear in the book of Kings. And I really think that the connection between these two is very strong. there's a lot of parallels between uh, sort of like both masters and both apprentices. I won't go into all of them right now. I just want to talk about the relationship, though. In both cases, the master's journey was cut short. Moshe, as we know, was supposed to go into Israel, but as we talked about a few weeks ago, didn't go into Israel because either because of his sin or because the people didn't go in. You can look back a few weeks back to Parashat Chukat and see what we talked about there. And because the master couldn't go in, there had to be found somebody to substitute, somebody to come in and sort of take his place. And in the case of Eliyahu, that was Elisha. In the case of Moshe, that's Yoshua. But what's interesting is that the person who comes to take in his place is not just another guy who needs to be filled up, but that they have a mission. And the person who substitutes, his mission is to complete, his job is to complete the mission that was started off by the master. Okay, it's not just any mission. It's the master was brought for a reason, and your job is to complete that mission, to fulfill, to sort of match that reason. With Eliyahu, it was banishing the Avodah Zarah, the idolatry that was present at the time. Not going to go into that right now. But with Moshe, the main mission of Moshe was go to Egypt, take out the people of Israel, bring them to the land of Israel. He wasn't able to do that. He wasn't able to bring them all the way. He was stopped at the doorstep. And Yeshua's job now is to come along and complete that. Okay? That's all of his job. Okay? And as such, we can understand a little bit of what was going on in Yeshua's head, and then it's interesting to see what God's response is. Yeshua was saying, all I am is an extension of Moshe. I'm not here because of my own merits. I'm only here because Moshe was here, right? And since Moshe was only here because he had a mission, he had this mission of conquering Israel, then when I finish conquering Israel, I'm gone, right? There's no need for me anymore. So that's what he means by saying, I see my fate is sort of, is set. Yeah? Moshe, it's more of a parallel rather than drawing a logical conclusion. He's saying, just like Moshe, when his mission was over, right? He was given this final sort of subtask. Get rid of the Midianites, right? And then you'll die. Well, my mission is to bring the people of Israel and conquer all these guys, right? So when I go in there, after I'm done with that, I'm done for, right? There's nothing more for me. There's no more purpose for me from God's perspective, so I'm going to be over. And so he was concerned because, he's just going in right now and it's going to, he doesn't want to die so quickly. In that sense, also, Yeshua sort of understood, but didn't understand what Moshe knew. Meaning, he understood that he was an extension of Moshe, and as such, he understood that he was only a messenger. But Moshe, unlike Yeshua, really understood, according to the MyDrash, what it means to be a messenger. It means to be completely devoted to the cause. It means that there's nothing more important than the cause. And when you start making your own agenda, and which delays the cause from coming to be, then you're in trouble, right? Then there's a problem. In fact, this is in and of itself interesting because Yeshua is from the Shevet of Binyamin, I believe, let's not go on this track if I'm wrong. No, he's not from Binyamin. My mistake. One second over here. Yeah, he's from Fine. Okay. So we'll forget about that. But in other words, Yoshua here takes sort of like his own agenda, subvert the mission. And so now we need to understand where he went wrong. Because God is saying to him, no, you're wrong. Actually, if you would have done things I would have told you and you would have finished conquering the land of Israel, quickly, you would have been fine. You would have lived for 120 years. I'm going to be with you just like I'm with Moshe. So so where did Yeshua's logic, not about, of course he shouldn't have, let his own needs come in place of, serving God's plan. But God is saying more than that according to the MyDrash. It's saying, because you didn't listen to me, you're going to lose life. Meaning, if you had listened to me, you would have lived onward. So where was his mistake? So I think we have we can look at this in a few directions. It's not explicit in the MyDrash, but I think that we can sort of figure out the answer on our own. Moshe died not because he had finished his mission. Moshe died because he was 120 years old. And I'd say even more than that, yeah? We don't know when Moshe would have died had he not been on a mission. In other words, the mission is not only something that can shorten your life because you finish it, it's also something that can lengthen your life because you're on a mission. Meaning, as far as we know, Moshe, from a natural life perspective, could have been living on borrowed time. He went ahead and did what God wanted him to do. As long as that's what he was doing, God said, well, maybe you're already 80, maybe that's how long you should have lived. But I'm going to let you live to 120 because I need you to complete the mission, right? Remember that he could have skipped 40 years, right? Because without the sin of the spies. So Yoshua might have missed the point. Like he might think, oh, Moshe died because he finished his mission. On the contrary, Moshe lived because he was doing a mission, right? And so, there's no Yoshua might have just misunderstood the direction in which things were going with Moshe, and so, drawn the wrong conclusions. But I also think that there's another thing we need to keep in mind, which is that perhaps Yeshua's devotion to Moshe is what sidetracked. We are now in a time when you can think of from Moshe all the way till Shaul HaMelech, and maybe even David, yeah? It's a period which can be thought of in general as the Tkufa of the Shoftim, of the judges. In the book of Judges, you see how there are no kings, there are no lineages, there's no transfer from father to son of rule. There's only, you're chosen because God needs you right now. You're chosen for a mission. Every person that's chosen is chosen for a mission. When they finish the mission, they don't die. They just go off into their private life. They're not there, they're not completely consumed by the mission. Moshe was unique. Moshe really was a person who, over the course of his life, it's unclear when this transition happened exactly, became the mission. He became completely devoted to it. We have him in Parshat Ba'alotcha saying, I feel like, a parent who's given birth to a child, when he talks about the people. Like, he's completely taken up by his job. But not everyone's like that. And in fact, Moshe is unique in that. And what Yoshua didn't understand was he thought, right, perhaps as part of his devotion to Moshe, that's how all messengers are. That's how all of God's messengers are. That they are only a tool for God, and then when the tool is done, then God, casts them aside. It's not criticism of God. It's just, he saw what happened with Moshe, and a devoted pupil, and he said, okay, maybe this is how things work. God says, no, that's not how things work. Meaning, not only could Moshe maybe have lived longer than he should have, but you can go back to your private life every so often, and I'll call you when I need you, right? In other words, the fact that the first mission is over doesn't mean there won't be more. When we see what happens later on, we see what happens in the book of Judges, and later on, even if you're not a king, I can still call on you when there is a need. There's always another need. There's always another mission. There's always another task to do. And if you would have truly accepted upon you that the role of the messenger, or the role of the person fulfilling a task for God, you could have lived longer, because I would have found more and more things for you to do. But when I see you're putting in your own personal needs into my plans, well then, you're not a true messenger. And so when you complete what Moshe said to you to do, then you'll have to move on. So I wish you all a good Shabbat, and I hope you enjoyed. And please comment. It's important to feel that there's a bit of feedback over here. Shabbat Shalom.